The Mouse's Three Children. Many years ago, in the kingdom of Nepal, there was a little mouse, who lived with her husband in a snug nest not far from the king's palace. Finding that she was about to be delivered of a child, the mouse prayed to the gods that her offspring might be very strong, and when the child was born it appeared in the form of a young tiger. The tiger soon grew up, and one day he said to the mouse, "Mother, I must now go off into the jungle and live there with my brother tigers. But if at any time you want my help, all you need do is to go into yonder thicket and throw a handful of my hair into the air, and call my name 3 times. So saying, he gave the mouse a handful of his hair, and went off into the forest. Shortly afterwards the mouse was again with child, and this time she prayed that her offspring might be very beautiful. When the child was born, instead of a young mouse, she found that she had given birth to a peacock. The peacock soon grew into a large and beautiful bird, and when he had reached his full growth he one day said to his mother, "Mother, it is now time for me to go and seek my own livelihood with my brothers in the forest. But if at any time you should require my assistance, all you have to do is to go to the top of that hill over there, and to throw a handful of my feathers into the air, and call my name 3 times. So saying, he gave the little mouse a handful of his feathers, and flew away into the jungle. Presently the mouse found herself a 3rd time with child, and this time she prayed to the gods that her child might become wise, wealthy and powerful, and when the child appeared she saw that it was a young man-child. As the boy grew up the mother was afraid that he, too, like his brothers, would want to leave his nest and go out into the world to live with his fellow men. So she told him the story of his 2 elder brothers, and explained to him that he was a man-child, and could not wander away into the jungle like they did, but must stay in the nest. The boy promised to do so, and every day he used to sit and play about at the mouth of the nest. Now it happened that in that country there lived a Mussulman who made his living as a barber and by paring people's nails. This man, who was very clever at his work, was often employed in the king's palace, and one day, as he was going to his work in the palace, he passed near to the mouse's nest. There he saw the boy seated on the ground, and, going up to him, he asked him whether he would like his hair cut and his nails pared. The boy said, yes, and the barber proceeded to cut his hair. To the barber's astonishment, each hair, as it fell to the ground, immediately turned into diamonds, pearls, and other jewels, and when he proceeded to pare the boy's nails, each paring, as it touched the ground, became a beautiful turquoise. The barber then went on to the palace, and as he was cutting the king's hair, he told him about the miraculous child, whose hair and nails turned into jewels. The king, who was a greedy and unscrupulous man, determined to gain possession of so valuable a boy, so he sent out some of his servants to bring the boy up to the palace. When the boy arrived, he was brought before the king, and the king told him that as he had been found trespassing in the royal forests, he intended to kill the mother, and to keep the boy as a slave, unless the boy could furnish him at once with 4 full-grown tigers to guard the 4 gates of the palace, in which case he would marry the boy to his daughter and would give him half his kingdom. The poor boy went in great grief to Mother Mouse, and related to her the whole of his interview with the king. The mouse told him not to vex himself, and she gave him a handful of tiger's hair and sent him out into the jungle with full directions as to what he should do. The boy went off into the heart of a dense thicket in the jungle, and throwing the tiger's hair into the air, he called out at the same time, "Brother Tiger! Brother Tiger! Brother Tiger!" Scarcely had the words left his lips when he heard a low, deep growl just beside him, and a great tiger stalked out of the thicket, licking his chops. "Here I am, brother," said the tiger. "What do you want?" "Oh, brother tiger," said the boy, "the king has said that if I do not immediately provide him with 4 full-grown tigers to guard the 4 gates of his palace he will kill our mother, and make me a slave." On hearing this the tiger laughed aloud. "Is that all?" said he. "That is easily arranged. I can get you 100 tigers." So saying, he opened his mouth and gave forth a series of fearful roars, and in a few minutes the whole jungle seemed to be full of tigers, hastening up from all directions. When they were all ready, the first tiger told his brother to mount upon his back, and so, with the boy leading the way, and the other tigers following in procession, they all went off in a body to the king's palace. As they approached the palace, great consternation arose, servants ran hither and thither, and the guards were called to arms. And when the king was told what was happening, he was greatly alarmed himself, but he seated himself on his throne, and gave orders for the boy and the tigers to be admitted. The boy rode in on the tiger's back to the royal presence, followed by all the other tigers, and halting a few steps from the throne he said, "Here, O king, are a number of the best tigers I could find in the forest. You can take your pick of 4 you like." The king was very much astonished at this, and having selected 4 of the finest tigers, he allowed the others to go away. But he still hankered after the jewels, and in a few days' time he again summoned the boy before him, and told him that unless he at once furnished 4 peacocks to sit one on each of the 4 golden pinnacles of his palace roof, he should kill his mother and keep the boy as a slave. The poor boy was very downhearted on hearing this, and went sadly back to his mother with the news. But the little mouse told him that it was all right, and giving him a handful of peacock's feathers, she instructed him how to proceed. So the boy went off to the top of a high hill, and, throwing the feathers into the air, he called aloud, "Brother Peacock! Brother Peacock! Brother Peacock!" Immediately a fluttering sound was heard, and a magnificent peacock dropped to the ground in front of him from the branch of a neighboring tree. "Here I am, brother," said the peacock. "What do you want with me?" "Oh, brother Peacock," said the boy, "the king says that if I cannot at once provide him with 4 peacocks to sit on the 4 golden pinnacles of his palace, he will kill our mother and make me a slave." "Never mind," said the peacock, "we can easily arrange that." So he fluttered back to the top of a high tree, and called the loud, shrill call of the peacocks. In a few moments the air was bright with numbers of fine peacocks flying in from all directions. "Now," said the first peacock, "come along to the palace." So saying, 4 of the strongest peacocks seized the boy in their claws, and they all flew together over the tops of the trees to the king's palace. When the courtiers saw the peacocks coming, they ran to tell the king, and the king seated himself upon his throne in the courtyard all ready to receive them. The peacocks placed the boy upon the ground in front of the king's throne, and arranged themselves in rows behind him, with their tails spread. "Here, O king," said the boy, "are all the finest peacocks I could find in the forest. You can have your pick of any 4 of them." The king was greatly astonished at what had happened, but he selected the 4 best peacocks, and sent away the rest. But the king still hankered in his heart after the jewels. So, a few days later, he sent for the boy again, and he told him that unless his mother mouse could fight single-handed with the king's state elephant and destroy it, he would kill the mother and make the boy a slave. The boy was greatly distressed on hearing this, for he did not think it possible that the little mouse could compete successfully with the king's great elephant, so he went home very sadly and told his mother the whole story. But the mouse told him he was not to be alarmed, and she directed him to smear her body all over with poison, and to tie a long string to her tail. As soon as she was ready, the boy placed her in the sleeve of his coat, and carried her along to the palace. In the courtyard of the palace everything had been made ready for the fight. Seats had been prepared behind a barrier for the king and his nobles, whilst the roofs and the windows were crowded with hundreds of people who had come to see the show. At one end of the enclosure the king's great tusker stood ready, still chained by the leg, and the boy, with the mouse in his sleeve, took up his stand at the other end of the arena, face to face with the angry elephant. At a given signal the elephant's chain was loosed, and with a bellow of rage he rushed towards where the boy was standing. As he came on, holding his trunk high in the air, the little mouse jumped to the ground and ran to meet him. The elephant caught sight of this small object, and stopped for a moment to see what it was, and the mouse hopped onto his foot. The elephant at once put down his trunk to feel what was there, and in a twinkling the mouse jumped into the open end of the trunk, and scuttled up it as fast as she could till she reached the head. She soon found herself inside the elephant's brain, and there she ran round and round, smearing poison all over the brain of the great beast. The elephant, not knowing what had happened, rushed round the arena, bellowing with rage and pain, and smashing everything within reach of his trunk. But presently, the poison taking effect, he fell to the ground stone dead, and the boy, pulling the string which was attached to the mouse's tail, guided her out of the elephant's trunk till she reached the open air. The king could no longer hesitate to fulfill his promise to the boy, so he gave him his daughter in marriage, and presented him with half his kingdom. And on the king's death the boy succeeded to the kingdom, and he and his mother lived happily ever afterwards.